you use for dyeing, that means like, I mean, today if you're doing any of the stuff that we're going over today, it's fine because I didn't put any chemicals on the materials list for today. So everything that you're going to be using today is totally fine. Nothing harmful, no chemicals are involved. But if you were to do this again with a mordant bath, like I'm about to talk about, then definitely use a pot that you're not going to cook in. Don't use a spoon that you would like. This is not a spoon that we use for food. And these gloves, I always wear gloves. And all the measuring utensils and the cups I use to dissolve the chemicals, none of those are for food. And then the surface is wiped.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm probably going to leave you here. But everybody, I want you all to, pay close attention to Lucia. She's very talented and highly knowledgeable of this stuff. And yeah.
A little.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. I'm going to let you go then and leave you to Emily, who is also awesome. Thank you. And we'll talk to you later.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thanks for stopping in.
Bye.
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 So normally I turn off my video and my audio just so I don't distract from the class.
Okay.
So I'm gonna be doing that, but it is recording right now.
Cool.
So yeah. So and we have 5 people, I guess, or something. I mean, but yeah. So what do you use as a mordant? Kind of.
So today I'm using aluminum sulfate.
Okay.
There's aluminum acetate and aluminum hydrated potassium aluminum sulfate, and I'm using the aluminum sulfate today. And it's actually more so recommended to use the aluminum acetate for plant-based fibers, which would be cotton, and that's what I'm using, and that's what I suggested people use for the class today. But aluminum sulfate is more so recommended for animal fibers.
Okay.
But it's what I had, so I just went for it, and it works well. It still does the job. But I'm actually gonna list just like a little article. Oops.
Okay.
I just accidentally did it wrong. But I'm gonna post this article in the chat so everybody can check it out if they want to, or save it just so they can learn more about it, but I'll still talk about it. So yeah, aluminum or alum is like the one that's pretty widely used, and it's probably the safest. I mean, all of these are a little sketchy to use just because they are chemicals, and it's best to be in a ventilated area, but I use them in small batches. So I try to be as safe as I can when I'm in my own kitchen and not in a ventilated studio. But if you are going to use alum, that's aluminum sulfate or aluminum acetate, just remember that too much, if you accidentally put too much in your dye bath, it can make your yarn and your fabric a little sticky. So yeah. Another mordant you can use is iron, and it tends to darken the fiber, the color that comes through on your fabric and your yarn. But it's really nice to use if you're trying to produce brown tones, which actually can be helpful if we're dyeing with onion skins, especially for the red onion skins, because they produce kind of like a browner, reddish, kind of almost like mahogany color. So iron's really nice to use for that. You can use copper also for a mordant. That could be old pennies that you can literally put in the bath, but it's probably just smarter to buy the copper sulfate. And you can find that on Amazon. You can find that on different websites if you choose to purchase chemicals for a natural dye bath. You can find these pretty easily online. And these are all in the, this is all, I'm finding all this information at the link that I posted in the chat. Bless you. Let's see. There are a few more on this list, but the only one that I have not, there are two more on this list, tin and chrome. I have not used chrome personally, but I have used tin as a mordant. It can be a little harsh on the yarn and make it a little brittle, so it's recommended to use it in smaller amounts. It's really toxic. So if you're going to use tin, I would suggest that you do this someplace outside where you can dissolve the chemicals in a container in water, and so you're not breathing it in your home. There's also a list of fixatives. I did not use a fixative today after my mordant bath, the one that's cooling right behind me. But you can use salt as a fixative. If anybody wants to use salt as a fixative tonight, you can do that right now. I can't see you guys, so I don't know if anybody's following along in real time. But if anyone has already scoured their fabric, I can give you a recipe to put your fabric in a salt bath. You can use 1 part salt to 16 parts water. So if you have a small piece of fabric, I'm thinking cups. If you have a larger piece of fabric, I'm thinking quarts. And a big pot. Place your dyeing medium into the salted water and simmer for about an hour to allow maximum absorption. Gently squeeze the salted water from your dyeing medium, and then while it's still wet, put it right into your dye bath. So if you guys want to do that, you can start that right now and get the bath simmering while we talk a little bit more, because I'll be doing the actual dye with the onion skins in probably like 40 minutes. This class is 2 hours.
So what does the fixative do and the mordant do?
Oh, good question. The fixative is just really helpful for the fabric to kind of trap the dye matter, the pigment of the dye matter. Because natural dye is not as color fast, they say, as chemical dye, so sometimes it's harder. That's why we scour. I put that in the directions for the class. That's why we use a mordant. Mordant keeps the fabric color fast or light fast. There's two terms, color fast and light fast. Light fast means that the fabric won't bleach too quickly in the sun. So like our clothes are probably mostly all dyed by chemical dyes. And that's why they don't really you don't go outside for a whole day and you come home and your fabric is like sun bleached, because we're all dyed with chemical dyes. But natural dye has the tendency to be less light fast than chemical dyes. And a way to prevent the fabric from bleaching too quickly in the sun or over like short periods of time, we use a mordant. And then I just went over the list of mordants that can be used. But I know a couple of people joined late, so I can go over them again if you guys want me to go over them again.
Yes, please.
I can go over the mordant that I did today. The reason I didn't tell anybody to do a mordant bath at their home is because it's a chemical. Mordants are all they're all chemicals, and they're just things that people probably wouldn't have at their home. So I just went ahead and did it on my own time, just because I had it still at my house. But the bath I created today is aluminum sulfate, and you can sometimes find this in the supermarket. You can just easily find it online if anybody chooses to buy things online. You can add it to your dye bath. You don't have to do a full mordant bath before you dye. Most of the time you can just mix it right into your dye bath and it won't harm the fabric or anything like that. But what I did with the aluminum sulfate is I mixed it in a cup of water. So for this size pot, pretty big. It's bigger than any of my cooking pots. And it's filled with only 3 inches from the top. So it's pretty full. I used 2 tablespoons roughly. I'm not like an amazing measurer, but I used roughly 2 tablespoons, and I have about 3 yards in here right now of fabric, and it's all cotton. And before I added the aluminum sulfate to the bath, I first filled the pot up with about 1 inch or 2 of water, and I put it on heat. and just let it start to warm up. And then I dissolved my 2 tablespoons of aluminum sulfate in a cup with some boiling water. And then in another separate cup, I dissolved a teaspoon of cream of tartar in a separate cup in boiling water. So both of them I dissolved separately. The cream of tartar is especially helpful when you're using an aluminum sulfate. This all sounds so boring. Science. Yeah, so I dissolved both of those separately, not together. And then as my small amount of water was warming up, I added them to the dye bath. And then I filled my pot with more water, enough water for my fabric to swim freely. And then I added all of my dye, all of the fiber that I was going to use in my dye bath today. So that is about 3 yards in here. And I let this whole bath come to a boil. And then I brought it back down a little bit and let it simmer for about an hour because it's, 7:07. So it's been on here for at least like 55 minutes. And I just took it off of heat and it's cooling on top of the burner. And I'm just waiting for it to cool down enough until I can put a gloved hand in there and not feel like I'm going to burn my hand. So that's a good time frame. And some people leave their mordant baths in overnight, just like some people leave their scouring baths in overnight. It doesn't hurt the fabric. It's okay to do. It's really just about if you want to leave a giant pot on your stove all night. So if you don't want to do that, it's okay. But I do recommend that when you are mordanting your fabric, to try and balance out the chemical reactions, it's recommended that you put a little bit of vinegar in your pot before you dump it down the sink, because it can be harmful when you dump it down the sink. Can I answer anybody's questions about mordaning so far? Okay, cool. I'm gonna bring you over to the other room because I'm gonna grab some supplies for doing resists. And resists are what we do to fabric when we're dyeing them if we want to create some kind of pattern, just kind of like tie dyeing, or if anybody's heard of shibori. I'm gonna grab a different piece of fabric that I'm actually not dyeing tonight just because I want to be able to show you how to do the resist on the fabric. And you're getting to see my whole house. Okay, so if anyone's ever tie-dyed before, it's pretty much exactly like that. There's lots of different ways you can do a resist. I'm gonna show an example with clamps, pieces of wood that will be clamped over top the fabric to create a resist, a shape resist. But I'm also just going to show you some ways to do some resist with rubber bands. I'm just going to make this bigger because, okay. How's everyone doing? Can you all see okay? Yeah, good, okay. All right. So when you're doing a resist, it's good to do the resist when your fabric is dry, not when it's wet. But after we do our resist, it's good to wet the fabric always before you put it in the dye bath. That lets it open up the fibers for it to be permeated with dye. I have a really big piece. You can do it on however large size fabric you want. Also, like this demo is I'm only using fabric, but all of the same stuff can be applied to yarn, cotton yarn, because I'm using cotton fabric. But the list that I did bring or share in the chat does cover mordants for natural fibers also that are not plant fibers. Okay, so one of your first resists I'm going to show you is like a pretty common tie-dye one. You just pull your fabric from the center or a spot so that you have enough around the sides, twist it, so however long you want the twist, then just rubber band it. And this will create a crazy spiral shape. Make your rubber bands pretty tight because you're just going to cut them off when you take them out of the bath.
So would you have scourged, I think the word is, the material before you do this?
Yes, because this is going to be your last step before you put this in the dye bath. So this is fabric that would have been scoured and would have been mordant in as well if you choose to do a mordant.
And the salt bath.
And the salt if you choose to do that too. Yes, all of those will happen before you do your resists. Because you do want the fabric to be dry when you do a resist. How's everyone doing at your homes? Good? Okay, good. Nothing crazy going on there right now? Good, that's good. I can hear some airplanes, some helicopters flying over my house right now. I live in Kensington. Been a little wild over here. Okay, so this would be a really cool, really fun resist. It'll be a huge spiral. Depending on how long you make it, you can make it huge. And it'll take up, like, you can take up your entire fabric this way. Like I have a really long piece and I could have just pulled exactly from the center and twisted the whole thing and then put the rubber bands all the way down and it would have just created a giant spiral. I'm just gonna take these out. Personally, I don't really like to create a specific image or plan any kind of real resist. I like it when it looks a little bit more random, so I can show you how to do that next. What is the difference between shibori and tie-dyeing? Well, there's a couple differences because of the way that they're actually dyed and the resists that you use. So shibori has a lot to do with block dyeing or like clamps and sewing too. And I can actually find you, I didn't have a link prepared for that, but I can find one for you and share it with you guys. And tie-dye is more so when, I don't know if anyone's familiar with doing tie-dye, but when I learned tie-dye, it had to do with spray bottles or like squirt bottles that look like kind of like condiment bottles, and you apply the dye to the fabric, whereas shibori is put in to resist and then put into a dye bath. And shibori is also mostly used for an indigo bath.
We're slap happy. Excellent. My question for you is my first one. When was the last time you got voice recognized? So you're in the supermarket, you're walking out.
Are you talking? Is somebody listening to the radio?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I didn't realize I was unmuted.
Oh, that's okay. I was like, oh, are you asking me a question?
No, Josh Gad is asking you a question.
I'm here to take your questions. Okay, so I like to be a little more haphazard and random with my resists, and I also don't like when they're too tight because I don't like a really strong line between like white, stark white fabric and the dye. I'm just gonna sit down because I'm just leaning over. So I'm gonna just take a random section from my fabric, not directly in the middle, just like kind of maybe close to the corner. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna do like this. I'm just gonna randomly grab a bunch of it and ball it up, and then just wrap my rubber band in many different directions. So I'm not trying to do it in the same direction multiple times. And this is gonna be a lot looser of a resist, so you won't get too strong of a white line. And then I can just do that however I want in the rest of the spots of my fabric. And then the whole thing can get really bunched up. I like doing a lot of resists if I'm going to do them in a fabric, because then it, I don't know, it makes it a lot smaller to put in a big dye bath. And it feels like I don't have to do all the pushing to get the dye to permeate all the spots if I'm trying to do lots of resists. So there's a more random resist. And now I'm going to show you the blocks. Let's keep an eye on the time, okay. So you can get pretty big. You don't have to use anything crazy clamp-wise. Like sometimes when I hear clamp, I think of like giant table clamps, but we got these really big binder clamps in our house, so I'm gonna show you with these. But you can also use this. Oh, where'd it go? These right here, you can find them in a hardware store. I think I actually got this at Walmart also. I kind of get everything, all of my dye materials from Walmart. But these are really nice too. So, clamps are great because you don't have to do that much work like you do with wrapping or rubber banding. You can fold your fabric in a lot of different ways. I'll show you a couple of different ways that people like to fold their fabric. The first way, we're going to fold it in half. And then in half again, long ways. And then in half one more time. So that you get a really long, thin rectangle. And then from there, we're going to fold it in increments that are about the size of your block. Yeah. It would be ideal if we could get it closer to the size of the block. So sometimes you just have to reorient the way that you folded your fabric, and I'm going to do that now. Oh, there we go. Cool. Okay, so that's about the size that we need because it's just about the size of the block. And I got these blocks at either AC Moore or Michael's. They have a lot of these different shaped wooden blocks. I have some circular ones. I have some triangular ones. I mean, you can go crazy with the blocks. You can get like ones that are shaped. You can get ones that have letters in them if you want to do like a letter resist. That'd be kind of cool. I've never done it before, but I bet it'd be cool. Oh no, good. My cat's sitting on my fabric. Okay, so once you have it to the size of your block, you're gonna fold alternating sides, like an accordion. So I'm just gonna check. Okay, that's perfect. You just have just enough space around it so that the dye can really penetrate. And then this is all going to be white under this block. So you're gonna accordion fold it. This is going to create a pretty nice resist, but if you really want it specific, I'm a little fast and loose with my resist, like I said before. So this won't be like the crispest block resist ever, just because I have not ironed any of these folds and they're not perfect. But if you want something really crisp, like an original like shibori piece of fabric, you want to iron all of your fabric before you start folding, and then iron the folds. So that first fold I did, I would have pressed that fold, and then the second one I would have pressed the whole fold. So it's really important, if you want like a very crisp line, that you press every time. How's everybody doing? Keeping up with me? Okay, so this is pretty thick right now. So I'm just gonna stop where I am, because I probably wouldn't honestly fold this much on such a large piece of fabric for this one block. I would probably fold it accordion style the opposite direction if I had another set of these blocks, but I only have one right now, so I'm just gonna show you on one side. So we smush it really, really, really tight. Again, it helps if you press them, because then you don't have to really worry about how thick this little fabric sandwich is right now. But I'm going to show you this in 1 second. I'm just going to put these on either side. And try your best to match them up, but if you can't match them up perfectly, that's okay. So now they're on either side. I'm really going to try and smush them down for my clamps. Might not fit. but this is a demo. I'm actually just going to take out one of the folds here. Yeah, that's still not going to work. At least we demoed the folding. Okay, great, woohoo! We finally got it back down to size. Take your clamp and place it around. Still not gonna work. I'll just show you on without folding. Sorry, these clamps, I was making baby blankets, so I was dealing with way less fabric. All right, woohoo! Take your clamp, put it around your block. Still pretty difficult, huh? Well, okay, I think you guys all get what I'm saying. You're gonna clamp your wood clamps around your fabric, and that's going to create your resist. I'm gonna go grab some samples of pieces that I've done, and I'll show you how to do another resist with, I have ping pong balls, but you can use marbles, you can use any kind of tiny ball, and it'll create a bunch of circular patterns, but I'll go get that. Okay, here's samples of some other dyes. This is avocado pits. And this is the accordion fold method that I just showed you guys with a triangular block. So this was folded the accordion style that I just showed you. The fabric was folded in small sections until it was the size of the triangle. And then accordion folded down until it was just like a stack of like a fabric sandwich this size, about the size of like a square here. And then I attached a triangular block on each side, clamped it down, and set it in the dye bath. And then when it came out, I made this really cool pattern. Woo! And this side was basically exactly the same thing. I just used a rectangular block. Also, this is muslin that was mortared in with aluminum sulfate. Oh, here's another example of the triangle. And this is dyed with indigo. This is cotton. And this was also treated with aluminum sulfate and cream of tartar together. And this was put in an indigo dye bath. This is the pattern that I'm going to show you right now with the ping pong balls. All right, everybody ready?
Question, did you use the indigo plant?
No, this was powder.
Powder? Okay.
Yeah, this was powder that I purchased from somebody else.
Okay.
But I really want to use the plant. I also just bought turmeric root because I've never used the root. I've only used the powder. But I've heard that the root is way more intense. So I really want to try that one. I'm gonna grab some water really quick. Okay. So in order to create this pattern, what I did was I cut my fabric to size, just because I was making a quilt, but you can cut it to any size you want. And I marked out the spaces that I wanted these to be. They could have been wider apart, they could have been closer together, but I marked them out a few inches apart using a quilting ruler. So after I had my fabric marked, was the woodblock indigo one shibori? Yes, that was shibori. Shibori is mostly like blocks and sewing. And there's actually one other type of shibori I learned. There's sculptural shibori, which is done only with silk. And then there's another, and that's like kind of similar to the technique I'm about to show you guys. Sculptural shibori can be used with acid dyeing because it helps retain the shape in silk, but I don't have the chemicals and the materials to show you that today, but the resist I'm about to show you does lend itself really well to sculptural shibori. And then there's another type of shibori called a rashi shibori. That's when you take your fabric and wrap it around a pole or maybe like a broomstick or something that you have, wrap it around there and secure it, and then wrap like floss or anything that you have that can create a good resist that's like a rubber band. And then when you pull it apart, it has like this really dramatic effect that creates tons of lines like a zebra. And it's really cool. I've got a bunch of ping pong balls that I've used a bunch of times. They have some indigo still on them, and they were like Halloween style ping pong balls. So after I marked out my fabric to create like a great, like a dot pattern, to know the measurements of where I wanted each one of these to go, I'd find a mark, put the ping pong ball under the fabric, and grab it, and just wrap the fabric around it, give it like a tiny twist, and then rubber band it. For these particular resists, I like to use these like smaller rubber bands I have, like a big bag of dye materials and supplies. I like to use these little ones. It's like the ones you use in your hair. Really tiny. And then just wrap your rubber band around there a few times. Make sure it doesn't break. I mean, this, like for this one, I didn't even wrap it around too many times and it still created a really intense resist. So you don't need to like go too hard on wrapping the rubber bands around because they do break pretty easily if you're using small ones. But if you're using like a bigger one, you don't need to wrap it around like 5 or 6 times, just like 3 times is enough. So there's one. Then you can cover your whole, my entire fabric was covered by these. So it looked super silly and it was like really shrunken up. And that's how we created that. That's how we got those circles there. I'll just do one more so you can see it. So I put the ball underneath the fabric and just gave it a small twist. And then wrap the rubber band around to secure it in place. And again, after you do these resists, always put your dye in hot or warm water, and then, always put your fabric in hot or warm water and then add it to the bath. Always do it when it's dry. And that's pretty much all I have as far as multiple resists go. You guys can get creative. I mean, I've used lots of different materials before. I've used clothespins and just kind of folded a fabric just in any which way, either in like quarters or eighths, and then put the clothespins around the ends, just all the way around, and it created a really cool resist. You can use, not staples, what are they called? Paper clips. You can use paper clips. You can use smaller binder clips or these large binder clips. You know, I also have used popsicle sticks before, which actually did work really well. It was a pain to do this because I needed so many different binder clips to hold them in place, but really, 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 really cool. I have another set of clamps here, or I'm sorry, wood blocks here that I didn't use clamps for. The fabric was just too big, so I couldn't clamp it, but I did just rubber band around it to keep it in place. Just remember that if you do choose to do wood blocks and you use rubber bands to keep it in place, it will create a resist on the edges of your fabric if they're not totally underneath the wood blocks. Okay. And I'm gonna put all this stuff away because, yeah, it's 7:30, so I'm gonna go over to the kitchen and show you guys how I would, oops, and I just broke rubber band, but that's okay because we're not doing that right now. How I would dump out my mordant bath safely and then just rinse it out in some cold water. Are you okay, Maddie? I'm gonna move all this stuff now. Yeah. Can I answer any more questions? How's everybody doing? You good? Okay. I only got one visual, so I'm just looking at you. Okay, it's time to dump out my mordant bath. And you can see it behind me. Hi. It's still steaming, so it is still probably pretty hot, but I want to get going with the onion skins demo because we only have an hour and a half left. And it does sound like a lot of time, but it's not. So I'm going to get my gloves on. And it's always nice to have another bucket handy. I'm going to grab another bucket that's clean. Has some some water in it still from when I washed it earlier. I'm just going to pick the fabric. I'm going to move this back so I don't splash. Pick the fabric up out of the dye bath and switch it over to my bucket. Also, if anyone didn't miss it earlier, if you're using chemicals like a mordant, it's always a good idea to use a pot and utensils that are not the same as the ones that you would use to cook, because it is a chemical, so you don't want to mix those things up. All right, now it's time to rinse this out in a few changes of cold water. I'm just gonna bring this closer so you guys can see. All right, here we go. In this bath, I have a piece of fabric that's actually from an old duvet cover that I used to have, and it just got a little nasty over the years because it's, you know, white. And I scoured it earlier today in the bath that I posted on the events page with the dish soap, and I left it in overnight. And then today I morded in that fabric with aluminum acetate and cream of tartar. So has anyone been doing this step by step, and did anybody start a salt bath when we started this class? No? Okay. I was gonna ask how it's going.
Yeah, I'm just looking at you.
That's cool too.
Yeah. Now, are you just cooling that down, or are you trying to rinse out that aluminum, the mordant?
I'm doing both of those things, yeah.
Okay.
Because I would do this even if it wasn't still hot. Like I would normally let this cool off either overnight or just until it's totally cool, so I could put my hands in there like safely and just like
Okay.
let it cool off. But I just wanted to get it out quickly for the class. I probably should have started it earlier, but there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on.
So are you trying to rinse all of the mordant out?
Yeah, I'm just trying to, like get it back to like a neutral state, I guess, is how I usually think of it. I give it a really good rinse.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then I'm going to probably let it sit in here while I start showing everybody how to start their onion skin dye. And then I'm going to rinse this again in some like warmer, hotter water so that it's prepped for the dye bath. Even though it's wet, I don't know. In school, they always mention that it should be rinsed in warm water. Mm-hmm. And even if it's wet, I don't know. I'm just like, maybe I should put it through some hot water again. And it's never failed me, so I guess it's right. But if somebody were to be doing that salt bath, they could just take it right out of the salt bath and put it right in the onion skins.
Oh, okay.
Because the salt bath is hot. Mm-hmm. You use heat for that. Okay. These are rinsed well enough. Cool. All right. Now I'm about to dump my mordant bath, and I'm just going to add a little bit of vinegar to it so that I don't endanger anybody or anything by dumping a big pot of chemicals in the sink. I'm just going to stir that up a little bit. Did anybody see if they've scoured already before we started the class? Did anybody see like really nasty cloudy water when they took their fabric out? Gross. For scouring, it's really important to do that, especially when you're doing natural dye, because if you're using a fabric, even if you're using a fabric that you've just bought that's brand new and it's ready to dye, it still has wax or not wax, oils in it that is used just like in the process of making the fabric, turning the fibers into fabric. So it's always good to scour to get all of that the excess oil and any kind of other like nasty stuff that's still on your fabric before you put it into a dye bath. And especially with the fabric that I was using today, I have 2 pillowcases that are from my mom and then a piece of fabric that was cut from a duvet cover. And they've been like used over and over again over the years. They have like built up detergent in the fibers. So scouring is really good to just get rid of all of that so that their fibers are really open and able to absorb a lot of the dye.
And what's the process to scour?
To scour is, hold on one second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, had to dump that out. Scouring, you can do it a bunch of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
The safest way, and the way that I posted on the event page, was to put your fabric in a bath of like dish detergent to kind of remove those oils, and heat it up and let it simmer for a while at let it simmer for a while, about like half an hour if you can keep it there, because it's hard to do in a large pot. And that will remove all the excess oils, and then you can take it off of heat and let it cool down. You can leave it overnight, or you can leave it for a few hours, however long you want before you empty the dye bath. But there's actually another method that I was looking at earlier, and I could actually totally share it with you. Here, it's right here. From Wild Colors. This is a good a source that I really like, and I'm going to put it right here in the chat. But this calls for a few of the chemicals that some people may not have at their home, so I didn't post this recipe, but this is a pretty good recipe, and it's one that I've used before, and it definitely gets a lot of nasty stuff out. It's definitely more effective than using dish soap. It's always definitely going to be more effective to use the chemicals, but that's mostly a personal opinion if you feel comfortable using the chemicals in your home. Okay, I'm going to get started now with the onions. And I have some of my notes from the first time I did this. Okay, I've got a lot of onion skins, and I'm really glad I have such wonderful cooks as roommates, because they've given me lots. I recommended the skins of 8 onions. I think I have probably a lot more here, and I actually froze a bunch in my freezer. So these are all frozen onion skins. It's probably better to use only the fresh ones, but I'm gonna combine the two because that just is gonna give me a lot more pigment. And these have been in here. I've just been adding to this for a long time. And today I'm using both red and yellow. Red, I wrote in the description of the class, red will give you a more like brownish, slightly purpley tinged red, and then the yellow produces more of an orange color. You're gonna want mostly like the papery parts, but I go a little rogue and sometimes use like a whole piece here and then just like, you know, pop it out when the time comes for the dyeing process. But the papery part is where you're gonna get most of the pigment from. So I'm just gonna throw these all in my pot. You guys can still see a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna clean up some of the mess here. And I'm gonna start filling up my pot with, I'm gonna wash my hands and fill up my pot with some warm water. And here I'm going to fill up the pot for, I'm gonna fill up the pot all the way because I have a lot of fabric, but if you have a small amount of fabric, just fill the pot with enough water so that your fabric or yarn has enough room to move freely. You'll be able to toss it around a lot with like a stick or a spoon or whatever you're using so that it's really well distributed throughout the pot. Because air bubbles or anything like that, when fabric and yarn is sticking out of the water, it creates discoloration and the fabric's not like perfectly evenly dispersed. The color's not really all throughout, so you'll get a little like bubbly look. So I'm about to fill it up with some warm water. Is everyone good so far still? I'm actually good not to use gloves anymore at this point because I don't have any more chemicals going on in this bath. And I'm just gonna show you right now, lovely visual of my onion skins in their lovely bath. Like I said, the recipe that I am showing you right now from this point on is chemical free, just so that you guys aren't messing up any of your stuff. So I'm gonna let that fill up. And if anybody ever has access to 2 sinks, then at this point I would probably wet my fabric in just a tiny bit of, or just like enough hot water for it to fill up that bucket that I have over here. And let that warm up in some hot water until it's ready to go in the dye bath. So when these are ready to go on the stove, I'm going to bring it to a boil and then let it simmer for 1 hour. Has anyone ever naturally dyed hair before other than Megan? Emily? No? It's really cool. And if you ever want to try indigo, oh really? Oh, that's cool. What have you made? Do you want to share with us what you've made? I will give a little hot tip. Honestly, for using indigo, it's a really, really, really strong pigment, even if it's not leaves, even if it's chemical. And you can do without mortaring and you can do without scouring if you want to just go ahead and throw it in there because it's really strong. It stained a lot of my clothes that I was wearing while, oh, with beans, that's so cool. Dandelions, avocados, beets, wow, that's really awesome. I love the way it looks with black beans. A black bean dye is really, really pretty. That's awesome.
I took a class, an indigo class with a brother Gasali from, yeah, here in Philly. Actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, Sarah Bond had it at her studio.
Ooh.
And down at, trying to think of the name of the place, down on American Street.
Okay.
Indigo Arts. I think that's the name of it, Indigo Arts. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
And he did one with the actual plant.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did they do that? So did they put the leaves in the pot and let them sit like what we're doing with onion skins, or was it different?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But it was in a pot because he had big vats.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he had the ball, the leaves, the dried leaves, I guess it was.
Oh, with dried leaves.
Yeah,
Okay.
with the dried leaves.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I tried growing my own indigo plants. It's so hard.
Oh, okay.
Like growing them from seed, I don't know. If I just maybe purchased one, it might be, easier to keep alive. But I tried growing them from seed and it was really difficult. I just never could get them to survive past sprouting.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm having a hard time growing lavender too, if anybody knows how to help with that.
No.
It's just not sprouting.
Yeah.
This is my second try.
He did a resist with cassava flour.
Oh, was it a paste?
A paste. We made a paste out of the cassava flour.
That is really cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Yeah, that stuff I've never done. That would have been a special class when I was in school and I never took it. But all that stuff is like, it's just so cool. And there's also a batik. I've never done batik.
Oh, okay.
Do you guys know anything about batik?
I took a batik class out in West Philly.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, there was there through the University of Pennsylvania, they were giving classes.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to take a batik class. I really want to try it out. Also, Sarah, you're Sarah. Oh, okay. That's your bean dye?
Yeah, I muted my toddler screaming upstairs, so. But I dyed it, and I think it's like super gray.
Yeah.
So I'm trying it again now.
Okay.
This has been my quarantine project.
Awesome. Very cool.
So, yeah, I actually so I let it sit in the dye. I think I let it sit too long. And then I heated it again after that, and then it turned gray. So.
Okay. How did it look before you heated it? Did it have any color?
It's like purple.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I think the heat probably, I like the gray, but it's like not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
So I think the heat probably did it. So we'll see.
It's my roommate in the background. We're about to we have 3 cats. It's feeding time and they're about to go crazy. There's some really crazy. Yeah, you're gonna hear some crazy stuff. So yeah, I've had really good luck with black beans coming out in like a purpley gray color, and that definitely looks a little bit more gray than what I've seen. But it does depend on the gray, Sarah, is still really pretty. But it does depend on like the fabric and the yarn you're using. What kind of yarn is that? Can you tell me?
It's like my mother-in-law gave it to me. It's like fisherman's yarn. I don't know, just white wool, I guess.
Okay, it's wool. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The beets came out kind of orange too, so I wonder if it's the yarn.
Interesting. Yeah. I wonder what that's treated with. Did you scour the yarn before you did it?
No, I didn't know I should.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, I've done it every which way. You know, like I've tried scouring, I've tried morning, I've tried not scouring, I've tried only one of those processes, or just doing the salt fixative. You know, like you can get a lot of different results, you know, just by messing with like one kind of dye and then messing with the preparative processes, you know. So that's cool.
So would you just substitute, say, the onions for the beets or for the peas, the beans?
Honestly, yes, because it feels like a lot of the times that I with black beans, what did I do? I feel like I sat them in, I used cans, have not done dried yet, but I sat them in some water with the juices and everything combined and brought them to a boil like we're doing here, simmered them for a bit. They were really a pain to kind of strain out, because I'm going to show you that you'll be straining this out like when it comes to a boil. I might not do, depending on the time, it's already almost 8, I might not be able to like let this simmer for the full hour and show you everything step by step on like how to take things out and how to put your fabric in, but I'll do it fake. I'll fake it and I'll just put it in early, and that's fine because I can always do this later. But yeah, so with the black beans, I steeped them basically like a tea and then took out the beans and to put my fabric in. But I also do a little fast and loose style and sometimes just leave the matter in there. And it sometimes looks a little like weird and splotchy if you get like just like nasty pieces of like wet onion skins on your fabric, but I don't mind that. And if it looks a little blotchy, I kind of like that look. So you can go for it like that too if you want. I mean, this fabric right now, I'm not doing anything particularly specific with it. I probably will just do it like I am doing another 2 classes to teach how to make a rag rug. So I think this fabric will just be used to make the rag rug. So if there's some discoloration in the fabric, that's not really that bad of a thing for me, particularly. But while that's heating up, I'm not going to use this because this is my chemical spoon. I don't really need a spoon, I'll just use my hand. Because this is about to get hot. Thank you, Sarah. I'm just washing my gloved hand so that there's no more chemicals on it for me to just kind of, ooh, it's already turning a nice color. I'll give you guys a little peek at that really quick. Want to see it? So I don't know if you can really tell, but it's already starting to get a bit orange, the water. So it's actually working.
How many cups did you use?
How many cups of water?
Both, I guess.
So for the onion skins, it's not, I didn't really measure it, but I had this container very, very full of the paper, like only the papery skins. And then this container very, very full of actually frozen onion skins that still had some wet bits that of the onion attached to it. And this had been frozen for kind of a little while, like maybe a few weeks. And I've had good success with frozen and fresh. It's the most minor difference when you use fresh versus frozen. But combining them is fine. And well, I feel like I was going to show you something, but I don't remember what it was. Well, that warmed up. I don't know. But I'll show you, I did buy some turmeric. Sorry. I'm really excited to use this. I almost did a turmeric demo instead of an onion skin demo, but I don't know. Onion skin just seemed a little bit more out of left field. I didn't do onion skin for a long time, but I have heard about turmeric. So I didn't want to do that. And also, turmeric is also another, I don't know if you guys have done turmeric yet, but that is pretty strong too. So if you want to go ahead and skip mordaning, I've seen lots of really nice stuff come out even without mordants. Probably a good idea to still scour, but even if you don't want to scour, it'll just be really light. It'll be more like a tint versus like a really strong pigment. But then again, that's only my experience with the powder and not the root. The root, I think, is just going to be really strong no matter what. So you could probably just go ahead and throw that in there without doing any of the preparative processes, if you feel like it. I'm just turning my heat up a little bit on this pot because I wanted to come to a boil. But we still have time. It's only 8 o'clock. These skins have not been used for a dye yet, but I have been able to use skins more than once. Once I've taken them out of the bath. I remember what I was going to show you. I was going to show you a quick, just because it's a little boring just watching the water boil, I'm going to just show you a piece of fabric that I played around with, a dye, or I'm sorry, a bleach. I did a little like bleach dye experiment, and I'm going to go grab that for you right now. So this was just an experiment that I did because I got a lot of fabric donated to, I was making lots of face coverings, masks for people, for hospital workers. And I was asking for some fabric donations. I was running out, and somebody gave me these like really nice brown sheets, like king size bed sheets, pretty high thread count. They're really soft, they're really nice, but honestly they were a little ugly and boring because they were just brown sheets. So I was like, I'm gonna mess with them and I'm gonna do some bleach action with them. So I took them outside and just sprayed them with a bottle of I put some bleach in a spray bottle and sprayed at them. And this is pure bleach right here. The spots that are like, that have gotten like completely white. And it definitely made a difference to use like pure bleach versus I have another one that is just, that's diluted bleach. And these look a little more orange, if you can tell the difference. But it was cool. I didn't think it would do anything because I've tried bleaching, doing bleach resist like dyed experiments on stuff before, and some stuff just like doesn't bleach. Like I had a pair of, somebody else donated black sheets to me, nothing happened with those. So they were just like pretty boring black masks, but whatever. But it looked pretty cool. Thought I'd show you. Because we just have the pot boiling right now, so.
Can I show you my yarn?
Yes, oh my God, please. We need something to look at right now.
So it's super, you can't even tell. It's avocado, and it came out like rose, so light.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I did a mordant on this one.
Okay.
And this is the beet. So it's like orange.
Oh, wow.
This is the first one I did, and I was like, oh my.
Wow.
Important that one either. So I was surprised at the color from the beets.
Yeah.
This is so light. It's like barely, it's like tan pink.
Yeah. Well, avocado is pretty light.
Yeah.
Even when
I'm
it's
surprised.
Yeah. Even when it's mordant, did you use skins or pits?
Both.
Both. Nice. Okay.
Together. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of like messing around, so I wasn't sure. I have all this yarn that someone gave me, so I was like,
That's so cool. You should do turmeric root next. You probably won't need a mordant that either. Like I said, it's really, really strong, probably as strong as the beet would be. So I don't think you would need to mordant it. And yeah, just toss it in. Did you do kind of the same method? Bring it to a boil, let it simmer, and then throw it in? Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that's cool. How long did you leave the beet in for?
I don't remember. Not long, not very long.
So not even
It's
overnight?
like, I don't think so. Like an hour or two, and it's super like peach colored.
That is really cool.
And then my dandelion came out really light too, but that was fun. I have a toddler, so we just like went around picking dandelions for like weeks.
That's so cute. My next trial is marigolds. So I have a bunch of dried marigolds here from outside my garden. And like anytime they look like dried up or messed up, like I clip them off, and I've just been letting them dry out in the sun for a little while. And I've never tried marigold. Did you lose salt? Is this to me or is this to Sarah? Did I use salt? If oh yeah, use salt. Did I use salt or did the other person who was just talking about using avocado pits use salt? I don't know where she just went. I didn't use salt at all in my bath. I didn't use the salt fixative today on the bath that I'm showing you. And actually on any of the stuff that I've showed you, I didn't use salt on like my bleach stuff or the, actually I think one of these might have been put in the salt bath before dyeing, but I don't remember because I did make these probably like 3 years ago. And I still have them, trying to get rid of them a little bit because they're baby quilts, so they're just kind of sitting in my basement. But yeah. Oh, that's okay. Sarah. Oh, I don't know. We should ask her whenever she gets back. I think she just like, she must have lost her connection for a second, but we can ask her. Did you let the bleach fabric dry outside after the technique, or how is it finished in the dryer? Oh, okay. So for the bleach, I let that just sit outside because it was pretty stinky, and I had sprayed it. It was on the ground on the pavers in my yard, and I just sprayed it directly on the fabric and then let it kind of dry out in the sun, especially because I wanted the sun to kind of act as a little bit of more of a way to bleach them. And the one that was, I think both of them I treated the same way. So once they were dry enough to handle and not be too smelly, I put them in the wash right away. And I washed them probably like at least twice on warm to get a lot of the stinky bleach smell out. And then I just let them dry in my dryer on low heat, just in case they would shrink a little bit. But they didn't. They were pretty, they didn't shrink or anything. Does anybody else have any other questions or projects that you've been working on that you want to share?
After we dye it, should we leave it out in the sun, if possible?
For onions?
For any of the natural dyeing.
I don't think you do. What's that?
Does it make a difference?
It might be it might not be so helpful to leave it in the sun. I only left the bleach in the sun just because I wanted that to bleach the fabric even more. So I used like the power of the sun to kind of amplify the bleach. But as far as natural dyeing goes, I probably wouldn't recommend leaving it out in the sun just because they're not as light fast as chemical dyes are. So they do have a tendency to just, like lose their pigment once they're in the sun for a long time, and probably especially after they're out of the dye bath and wet. But what I do when I take them out of the bath is I rinse them in cold water, and then I just let them dry, air dry, like, somewhere in my house. Or sometimes I'll throw them in the dryer if like right now my basement's pretty humid and pretty damp. So it would probably help aid the process of drying them with the air dry setting on my dryer.
Okay.
They're super, super dry before I do anything else with them.
And if you're using it on a fabric that you're going to use as garments, how would you clean them?
I would probably keep them in cold water.
Okay.
Yeah, Cold water is always your safest bet so that they don't, so the colors don't run.
Right.
And also if you're using cotton or anything that could possibly shrink it, it's just best to use cold water, especially if you just only have so much fabric and you're using it for a pattern and you don't want to lose any yardage. Cold water is always best.
Okay.
Yeah, you can look at the pot and I'm gonna put some hot water over my fabric now. I'll be done. You're doing fine. I'm just gonna go there. You don't want to be on the video. Oh, directly. Well, they want to see you. Okay, I'm letting that fabric soak a little bit in the hot water. And I'm not seeing too many bubbles right now, so this is not like at a good boil yet, but it's definitely getting there. I'm just gonna use a plastic spoon, just in case there's a tiny bit of any chemical still left inside the pot and it doesn't leach out into any wooden utensils. I don't know, probably not, but I get a little paranoid. It's definitely gotten darker. I'll show you guys how it looks now. You see the color? It's kind of a wacky visual. But yeah, it's definitely starting to release a lot more color now. Oh, it's so pretty. I might just go grab a little bit of white yarn actually upstairs, the white cotton yarn that is off the spool and I haven't done anything to it, just so I can do a little test while it's still heating up. You're gonna come through my whole house with me. So I'm just gonna grab some white yarn that I have. This is a cone of weaving yarn, and I'm just gonna cut a little bit so I can test the dye bath. Sometimes it's nice to just drop a little skein, something a lot larger than this, but a little skein of yarn if you want to test something, but you are not sure how it's going to react to your yarn, but you're already making a large bath for some fabric. I always like to throw a little piece of something else in there. I also have some silk that I could try throwing in the bath, so I might do that as well. Looks like somebody said something in the chat. Have you dyed garments and how did you manage shrinkage? Oh, you know, I've only really had a problem shrinkage. And I didn't manage it very well because I I didn't really account for it to shrink. I didn't really think about that. But also most of the time that I dye stuff, I don't have a particular project in mind. So I kind of just dye willy-nilly before I decide what I'm going to do with the fabric. It's really hard to manage shrinkage when you're using cotton, wool, or silk because you're putting it in hot water. So I would suggest if you are planning to do a specific pattern with the yardage that you are dyeing, I would just suggest that you use a lot, maybe like an extra yard, to just account for shrinkage in case it shrinks.
My friends are out on York Street and
York?
it's like almost curfew and she's like not like that. She's just like live.
Where? Wait. Where on York?
Like headed towards Frankfurt. But they're
What?
further over now.
What?
But I just feel like she hasn't been out before and I'm like, how are you gonna get fucked up?
So not really that much pigment yet. It's still pretty, that's still pretty white, but it's like slightly tinted. This is really hard to see on the camera. Oh, you meant sewn garments. Oh, you said garments. Yeah, you did say, have you dyed garments? No, I have never dyed, naturally dyed a garment. The only thing I've done for a garment is a RIT dye. And I didn't notice any shrinkage there. I did a RIT dye on a pair of canvas pants. And I didn't notice any kind of shrinkage. But again, like, I guess the only thing that I could say for dyeing garments to avoid shrinkage, if you're really worried about it, is see if you can find a low water, sorry. Oh, that's the curfew that I'm getting on my phone right now. Just an alert for the curfew. I would suggest using a low water immersion. I'm gonna type that in right here. Low water immersion or any immersion dye. You can Google this, MX procion dye, because those are, they can be used in cold water dyes. So if you are worried about that, you'll have a better chance with MX procion dyes. Those are chemical dyes though, just a heads up. So if you're going to use them, I would definitely suggest doing that outside if you have access to an outdoor space. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. Did that help you? Things are definitely heating up in the pot right now. I can hear the water boiling a bit more. Definitely getting darker. The color's definitely getting darker, which is good. Still gotta wait for it to get even darker before I put my stuff in because it has to come to a boil. But yeah, if it gets closer to 9 and nothing has changed and it hasn't boiled yet, I don't mind just like kind of throwing this in, you know, showing you how to scoop the skins out, where to put them, and then tossing your fabric in and showing you how to. Sorry, there's some action going on around my house, so I'm just keeping an eye out for crazy stuff. Everything's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. But yeah, I don't mind like putting my fabric in and just kind of giving you guys a demo like here to show you how I would do it if we just like run out of time. It's a little tricky because this is online. But Sarah, how old is your toddler?
He's 3.
He's 3?
Yeah.
Aww.
So we did a really good job of collecting dandelions. That was fun.
That's so awesome.
So I'm trying to decide what to do next. What to collect. We're in Boston. I'm not sure. Is everyone else?
Oh!
Yeah.
I'm in Philly.
Yeah.
Who else is in Philadelphia? Brenda's in Philly. I think Emily, you're in Philly?
Other folks are. I don't know if you can hear him screaming.
That was him. Oh my God, I thought that was something on the street. I got really worried.
That's fine.
Oh, that's really cute. I'm a nanny most of the time when I'm working. And yeah, like this is horrible not being able to hang out with the kids that I watch. I watch I guess she's like 15 or 16 months now. And the other one that I watch, he's gonna be 1 in like 2 weeks. Or I'm sorry, he's gonna be 2 in like 2 weeks. And I have like all these presents to give him, but I can't hang out with him. Yeah, it's so sad. But we've seen each other like in person. They live really close to me. They're about 2 blocks away. They live like closer to Fishon area. And so occasionally I'll walk over to the house and just kind of speak with them like from their they're on their porch and I'm like standing in the sidewalk. And he looks so different every time I see him. They grow and change so quickly. It's crazy. I forget because I'm not seeing him all the time, you know? Really, really crazy. A lot of
yeah, it's hard. They change really quickly.
They do, yeah. Like every time I see him, his face looks different. So wild. All right. So my fabric that's in this bucket here, just a heads up, like you don't need this to soak for like ever. When you're about to put it in the dye bath, you can really just like even run it. A lot of people just like run it under some hot water before they put it in. I just like to soak it because it's easier for me to just like kind of put it all in one bucket and then throw it all in at the same time. Also, I'm definitely breaking my own rule, especially for onion skins, because I'm about to really crowd the pot with a lot of fabric. And it's not ideal to do that because you really do want your fabric to swim freely in the pot. So I might, even like right now, even though I have it all prepped and ready to go all in at once, I might just put in half of this and let that simmer for a while and then take it out, rinse it out, let it dry, and then put the next wave of stuff in, because it doesn't matter how long. If you guys want to do that at home, if you want to have like lots and lots of yardage dyed and you want to break it up, or if you have lots of skeins that you want to dye and break it up, it's totally fine to just leave it on the simmer for a long time and put like 2 or 3 batches in one after the other so that you're not getting too many air pockets in your fabric. But
will that affect the color?
Putting like a batch in, taking it out, and then putting another batch in.
I guess, yeah, like will the color be different between each batch?
I don't think I've had any kind of color changes. The only thing that I would say is different is it's definitely different. It's less pigmented than when I have just left it in overnight. And it's just like not possible to do that because I'm doing multiple batches. But if I'm just doing one whole batch and I can leave it in overnight, it's really, really dark. And there are times that I've done that by accident and I've been like, oh, wow, like this is really good. Pretty rich color. And I also will like to point out to you guys that if you ever do try to experiment with different mordants, they bring out different tonalities of color in your baths. So alum, aluminum sulfate is going to bring out a different tone. Oh my gosh, don't apologize for your questions, it's fine. I just saw Faye is asking a question. If you want to dye solid colors, do you constantly move the dye bath so you don't get any streaks or tie-dye effect? Yeah, I think it's definitely important that you move it pretty frequently so that every part of the fabric is hit with the dye in a pretty like constant way, because naturally it's just gonna kind of like bubble up and create air pockets. So you're just gonna want to keep moving it, and that's why it's really important to not overcrowd your dye pot, so that there's not too many folds, because it can even cause a problem if there's too many folds in your fabric. So if I put all of this in at once, like you can see it right now, that's a lot of fabric and there's tons of folds. The pot is bigger than this bucket, but it's just definitely not big enough to hold all that fabric. Do you use stainless steel for the pot? I'm pretty sure this is a stainless steel pot. I think somebody asked me that earlier, and it's okay that you missed that. That's fine. Somebody did ask me if this is stainless steel or aluminum. I bought it a couple of years ago at, oh, you're welcome. I bought it a couple of years ago at Walmart, and I do think it is stainless steel just because I've used it a bunch of times and have not gotten any chemical reactions with any of the chemicals that I've used in this pot, because a lot of times people use, when they're doing mordants or if they're doing even scouring, they can get a little bit of greenish tinge to their fabric because of the reactions of the aluminum pot. But I haven't experienced any of that, so I do think this is stainless steel. But I mean, go ahead and use aluminum too, though. You know, like sometimes it's cool to have those reactions. Just be prepared for it to not look like a specific way and be ready to see that. Okay, I don't know if you can hear it, but it sounds really bubbly. All right, we're almost there. I'm starting to see like some bubbles come to the surface. I'm just gonna stir it a little bit more. It's definitely getting pretty dark right now. It's like a really dark burnt orange color. And I'm gonna let you guys look at it. Just a second. So it's really starting to get dark in there now. Woohoo! Oh yeah, that's what we were trying to figure out. Sarah, did you use salt? Salt fixative? Oh, you use vinegar for the beets. Okay, and alum for most of the dyes. Cool, cool, cool. Is it alum sulfate or aluminum acetate? You're not sure? Okay, that's okay. They're both pretty good. But they do produce slightly different colors, just like the list of, I'm sorry, the list that I sent you guys earlier today from All Natural Dyeing, the mordants and fixatives. The list there states like lots of different fixatives, and they all can produce like different tonalities in your fabric. Oh, go ahead, Sarah. What do you got for us? Food grade alum powder. Okay, cool, cool. I have not used that. Did you get it at the grocery store?
I got it. So the cream of tartar was too expensive for my, experiment. So I got it from Amazon. It's like a big packet of alum. Ooh. I don't know that it's doing anything.
Okay. Have you tried a bath without it?
Not since I got it.
Okay.
So I got it just like on, oh, it's aluminum sulfate. It is sulfate.
Okay, cool. That's exactly what I'm using right now.
So the vinegar actually worked better with the beets than anything else. So I might go back to that. I don't know.
Cool.
It was just white vinegar. Somebody asked. Carol asked.
All right. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Just and like grocery store.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. That's good to know. I've definitely heard lots of people have lots of success with vinegar and turmeric powder. And then this is the, oh, you want me to share the link for the, I'll just share both of the links that I've posted in here. I'm just going to share them again. Okay, so this link that I'm posting right now, this one lists a bunch of different mordants and fixatives that you can use for your fabric to prepare it for your dye bath. And it probably says it in the article, I'm not sure if it does, but I'll state it right now that you can use, you didn't use alum for that. Oh, okay, that's good to know. That might help then next time. Lock in some more of the pinky pigment that makes it look really nice. But yeah, so the mordants and fixatives, you can use a mordant either before your dye bath, so you can soak it in a mordant and just let it sit in there, or you can actually add pretty much all of those mordants, I believe, on that list, you can just add it right into your dye bath. And I would probably suggest adding that mordant to your dye bath before you put in your matter, like your dye matter. And there's one other one that I had shared with you guys earlier. Let me find it. And it was wild colors. What was this? Oh, this is a scouring and another like kind of like mordant tutorial. Like I said, there's lots of different ways you can scour. And I sent everybody on the, this is the scouring one. I specifically gave out a scouring method that just includes dish soap. And it's effective, but just not nearly as effective as it would be if you had access to soda ash. And that's just a chemical that's used to really strip the fabric of oils and other nasty things that are stuck to it. Like if you have fabric that you're using from an old sheet, or I'm using fabric that I cut from an old duvet cover that's been used for years and years and years. It has lots of different, it has lots of detergent kind of built up in it after so many washes, so it really needs to be stripped down, and that's why we scour. You're welcome, no problem. Okay. This is starting to come to a boil now, actually, pretty good boil. Bubbles in the top, so I'm probably gonna take these skins out with a colander, or just like a mesh sifter really quick. And I'm actually just gonna put them in a bowl because I want to save them for another time to dye with them. But you can toss them if you don't want to use them again, if you don't want to just like hold gross wet onion skins and put them in your freezer, I understand. So now you can see that it's really starting to, oops, dropped my sifter. That it's starting to come to a boil. We've got some bubbles now. You guys can see them. And it's pretty dark in there. Color is really coming through. I'm gonna do a little test with my piece of yarn that I did earlier. My tiny piece of yarn. And this was the end that I put in earlier. Doesn't look that much different at all from the dry side. I'm just gonna dry it off a bit. It's definitely tinted a tiny, tiny, tiny bit from when we put it in probably like 10 minutes ago, but nothing really changed. So I'm gonna put the dry end in and see what happens. Okay, it's definitely darker this time. More of a yellowy color. Still pretty hard to see, but it definitely is starting to tint the yarn. So this is good. But also remember that this is just like yarn from a spool in my room that has not been, oh wow, it's definitely darker when you hold it up to like the white paper towel. You can see a change. Does anybody see that? Probably really hard to see. But it's working. I'm gonna wait just a tiny bit longer before I put it in. Does anybody have any other questions? It can be about dyeing, it can be about other stuff too. I do lots, and I wear many hats, and I make lots of different stuff. I do sewing and crocheting and weaving. If anybody wants to know about those other processes, I can help you out. Woo! Okay, it's coming to a rolling boil now. Perfect. I'm gonna now take out all the, actually, I'm just gonna bring it down to a simmer right now. I'm using something called a power boil on my stove. I don't know if everybody has that setting, but on the power boil setting, I have it on like a 4. If it's on just like a basic gas stove, I would put the setting probably on like a 6, closer to like medium heat. And I'm just gonna let them simmer for a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. Oh, I'm sorry, I actually just confused that. I'm supposed to let it simmer for an hour before I remove the onion skins. That makes sense. But we are getting close. Okay, so it's 8:38, so I'm just gonna go ahead and show you this right now. That's fine. I can put it all back in here later on and bring it back to a simmer. Totally cool. I'm gonna show you how to remove all of this stuff. So I've got my bowl, because I wanna save my onion skins, and I'm gonna take a sifter. You can use a colander. Sometimes people will just like kind of like dip a colander in there with a gloved hand so that you don't burn your hand, but I'm just gonna use this because I have it right now. Really smells like onions. Pretty strong. Is Sarah down here?
No.
Did she go upstairs?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's still here. I thought maybe she had left. Do you know if anything's turning violent around us, or is everything cool?
I don't remember anything.
Okay. I got a couple of calls and texts from my signal, so I haven't been able to look at them, but I'm sure it's fine. Okay, so I just strained all of my onion skins out, and I'm keeping them in this bowl until they cool down. And I'll probably honestly freeze them again. If I'm gonna use them like right away, I might just throw them in my fridge. But I don't know if I'm gonna use these like within the next like 2 days. So I'm gonna throw these back in my freezer. Now, let's pretend that this has been simmering for an hour. And I just taken my skins out, and I'm going to put my fabric, after having them soak in some hot water, evenly, ideally, but mine's really packed in this bucket. And I'm going to place them in the dye bath, but I'm only going to do a pillowcase. I'm not going to do this whole thing. So here I have a pillowcase, kind of hard to see. I'm taking it out of my hot water that I had just had it soaking in. I'm gonna go put it in the bath. Very gently, because I don't want to splash hot water at myself. And I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys. There it is in my bath. And I'm gonna give it some good stirring so that, see these air pockets that are forming because the fabric just wants to, you know, shoot up and bubble up to the top. Just gonna kind of push them around gently and make sure everything is hit with the dye. And if you guys can see this, look, it's already taking the dye pretty well. I don't know if you can tell, but this is already becoming pretty yellow, which is really cool because I haven't even simmered this for an hour and it's already pretty dark. And I'm gonna bring the heat back up. I normally wouldn't do this to bring the heat back up, but it didn't simmer for very long, so I'm just gonna bring it up a tiny bit because I don't want it to get too cool. was it just hot water that it was in? Yeah, so just before I put this in the dye bath, it was just sitting in hot water. But earlier today, I did put it in a mordant bath. And that mordant bath consisted of 2 tablespoons of aluminum sulfate dissolved in boiling water in a cup. And then about 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar in another cup dissolved with boiling water. And in my pot, I filled it up with about a couple inches of water and put it over heat. And then once those 2 chemicals were dissolved in the cups, I added that to my dye bath and my mordant bath. And then I added some more water so that the fabric would have enough room to swim around freely. So that was probably filled up all the way except for the last like 2 inches. You don't want to fill it up too high because you don't want it to boil over and hurt you. So that's what the mordant bath it was in earlier today. And when I brought that up to boil earlier today with my fabric in it, I put the fabric in it before it came to a boil. And then I let it simmer for about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And at the beginning of this class, y'all saw me take it off the heat and rinse it out in some cold water to cool it off. And then I put it in the hot water again, just because I learned that we should soak it in hot water before we put it in the dye bath. So even though I just cooled it down from a hot mordant bath, I wanted to bring it back up into hot water before I put it in my dye bath. So yeah, it's actually taking it really, really, really well. And I think the mordant is doing a really amazing job. And I think this is pretty yellow. I'll show you guys. Fabric's turning pretty yellow, and it was very white before, so it's definitely doing a good job so far. I'm gonna leave it in there for a little bit because I do have to go to the bathroom, so I'm just going to let you guys look at the awesome steaming pot. I'll be right back. Yeah. Okay, I'm back. Let's check on this. Okay, we have about 13 minutes left in the class, so I'm probably gonna just take this out right now and rinse it out, and we can all look at it and see how it did just within the very short amount of time that it was already in the bath. And remember, this was mortated with aluminum sulfate and cream of tartar, which are both really easy to get online. I'm just gonna pull it out and put it, you know, I'm gonna put it in my sifter. Okay, I'm gonna bring you guys over to the sink so I can rinse this out. Somebody posted a question. So if you want a green color, can you mix ingredients like a little indigo combined with turmeric, or do you dye one pot then dip it into another bath to achieve green? How do you combine colors? That's a good question. I actually don't know because I haven't really done that often. I would imagine you could probably, you might have a better bet to do one over the other instead of combining them in a bath. Just because, I don't know, it also depends on the kind of mordant that you use. And also, like I said earlier, aluminum pots do have a reaction, so a lot of things can turn a little bit on the green side. I do follow somebody on Instagram. Her name is Close Knit, and she has dyed several things with rosemary, actually. And rosemary gave a really awesome green color. I don't even think it was actually fresh rosemary. I think it might have been frozen. And it gave a really nice green color, but I don't remember what the mordant was. It could have been iron or it could have been alum. But yeah, rosemary, I just learned that the other day, gives a really nice green color. But I wouldn't think it's crazy for you to try doing like an indigo bath and a turmeric bath, like one after the other. Maybe try doing, indigo is just really, 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 really strong. So I would just like maybe do turmeric first and then just literally dip it into the indigo whenever you have it ready and do a small section and see how strong it is and how it's overlapping in the turmeric. But, so I've rinsed out this pretty good in some cold water. And it's darker right now just because it's wet, but it is pretty yellow. It'll definitely dry to be a lighter color. But also this, remember, this wasn't even in the bath for the amount of time I normally would have left it in the bath. So if I had let the bath rise to a boil and simmered for an hour without removing the skins yet, this would probably be more of an orange tint than it is a yellow tint. But here, you guys can check it out. So that's really yellow. Pretty pigmented. And that was only in there for like, I don't even know how long I left it in there, for like 10 minutes. It was a pretty short amount of time. But yeah, that got some really good color already. And this was totally white before. And actually it's pretty even too, because probably it's pretty light. You know, it hasn't been in there for a long time, so it didn't have a chance to get some air pockets in it and create too many different like textures or colors. So yeah, that worked really well. And now I'm just gonna wring it out a little bit more so it's not dripping all over the place. And I'm gonna hang it up to dry. But you guys, I think it's really okay if you feel comfortable putting fabric that you had just dyed and rinsed out very thoroughly in your dryer. I think that's okay to do that. And then when you wash these, oh, you guys like it, thanks. When you wash these, always wash it on cold water. And I would just recommend not using too much, I would recommend not using too much detergent on it, or maybe like even like a gentler detergent on natural dyes, just to preserve it for a longer time. But yeah, woohoo! And there's a question here. How long does natural dye last on fabric? I mean, it lasts a pretty long time. It definitely fades quicker than color fast dyes or like chemical dyes, but it does stay on for a pretty long time. Like there are things that I've dyed for years and years ago, and it relatively looks the same, just a tiny bit lighter, you know, like a little bit more washed out look. But indigo, I gotta be honest, that does not really wash out like ever. It's really strong. I have a couple of like mud cloth that I've just like gotten from people, and it's in my house, and I've had to wash it because my cat will throw up on it, and the indigo will still wash out sometimes. So I always wash that separately and put it in cold water. But but that was dyed by somebody that's not me, so I don't know how the process went, and I don't know how, I also like am not really familiar with that fabric. So there's lots of different reasons why it would still be washing out now, and kind of like leaching in my washing machine drum. But if you're dyeing with indigo at home, you know, just rinse it out really, really, really well, and maybe even rinse it with like a dish detergent to really wash it out so that you're not getting too much indigo on other stuff. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. I'm just gonna hang this really quick, and then we're getting close to the end of class, so I can answer some questions if you guys have them. Just gonna hang this up. Okay, does anybody have any questions or suggestions?
No, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, how did this go? This is my first time doing any kind of natural dye session or I mean, anything over Zoom. So was it boring when I was heating the pot up?
No.
Okay, good. I tried to make sure it was, I was like filling the dead air with some chatter.
Well, this is my first Zoom workshop. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't have any, but I thought that it went very well, and I was thinking initially that I wasn't going to be on this thing that long.
Oh wow! Well, good. I'm glad you stayed on.
But yeah, no, but I mean, it was interesting, you know, just to see that process and all. And I just bought some onions, and so now you're going to encourage me to cook.
Yes, awesome. That's great. Yeah, save the onion skins. I mean, like I saved those over like a couple of weeks of just cooking stuff, and we made pickled onions, and then I cooked a bunch of stir fries with the yellow onions. Yeah, whatever you use them for. I would save them in a Tupperware and just stick them in your freezer.
Yeah, but I'm going to try next. I'm going to try the turmeric first.
Yeah, that one's going to be really good, even if you don't morden it.
Yeah,
you can throw that right in.
Yeah, and then I'll try the beets.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Were they red beets or were they golden beets?
Red beets.
Okay, cool. Wow, that's an interesting color to come.
Yeah, it was the first one I did, so I'm not sure. I don't remember what I did, but it came out really like peachy orange. It was cool.
Interesting. Yeah, because I've even like accidentally dyed like a white sneaker with some like purpley red beet juice when I was like cooking beets. I roasted them in my oven and then like took them out and spilled some juice on my shoe, and it never came out. So I don't know, like those, they're really, really pigmented. Oh, I'm glad you guys like the class. Awesome.
Yes.
I know I still can't figure out some of the stuff that Zoom has to offer either, but I'm glad you guys all stayed on the whole time. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was good.
Got through.
Thank you very much. Everybody be safe.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
Yes.
Take care.
All right now. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.